What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Dylan Nossman, DSK Combat Sports, and we are back with a little more of a unique video. I am joined by the English commentator and presenter of Octagon MMA, Bryan Lacey, joining me to do a little mid-year recap of what's happened, what's to come in Octagon. First of all, Bryan, thank you so much for joining me, and how are you doing, man? How are you enjoying your little summer break so far?
Listen, I got to say thank you to you because you are diehard Octagon, and I've got to
Yes.
say I've watched so many of your interviews as part of my prep. Vespasiani, Magard, Hendon. There was a great fact in Hendon about his walkout, which
Mhm.
I hadn't got before. Again, which you know adds to mine. So big credit to you. Thank you from me to you for doing some of my job and doing what you do, spreading the word of Octagon. I love it.
Of course. Well, again, like I said, for you as the English, voice of Octagon, I always enjoy hearing your thoughts and commentary on the shows. And again, it definitely goes both ways. So once again, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today as well. And I mean, right off the top, we're fresh off one of the best events of the year, if not one of the most stacked event of the year at Svenice, excuse me, American pronunciation, probably not so good. But I mean, obviously, main event, we saw Lucia Sazbova in a 5-round war defeat Lucy Pudilova to defend the belt. And then in the co-main, we had that crazy fight with Will Fleury and Makhmud Muradov. I just want to hear your perspective, obviously being cage side right there, calling the action in that venue. Just, run me through and people through like what it's like being right there for such incredible moments in such an incredible venue.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Mhm.
I still don't get, I still don't take it for granted. I still enjoy every second. I absolutely understand the privilege of the position,
Mhm.
and I enjoy it, and I work at it as hard as I can to make
Yeah.
myself hopefully as good as I can for the commentary, for introducing the fighters to people who might not know the promotion, the individual fighters, the backstory to fights.
Mhm.
But that card, the Stvanica, is just a special place. It's
Yeah.
open air. It's in the middle of Prague, and when you see the shots from the drones way out, and you can see the backdrop of Prague, and you can see the lights pumping, it looks like a
And the
heart.
river, I mean, the river
Oh,
going through as well. I mean, the water in the
dude.
city, it's seriously on my bucket list, not just as an MMA fan, but just as a live event fan to go to one of those shows. Because again, like you said, the fireworks and the view and the open air, and obviously it's kind of that perennial summer event, kind of gets the people out into the open air, and it's, yeah, so unique. So again, truly special event, I'm
You
sure. So,
have you have to do it again. If you're talking about bucket list stuff or treating yourself to certain opportunities, and it's just a different vibe. It sold out, I think, within a few weeks of it being announced with no fights because it is the ticket in the summer. And they put the fight card together, and by accident, we got the two. Well, with the main event we knew about with Lucy and Lucy for the bantamweight title, but Skor coming out of his fight against Flurry gave us just the most incredible, the highest ranked fight we've ever had in Octagon. And I will say it, the craziest 30 seconds I have ever called in a fight. And
mhm.
that's from the last 10 seconds of the first round to the 19 seconds in round number two. I've watched it back maybe 15 times, maybe
Mhm.
more than that. Um, I've done it in slow mo. I've done all the different things, and again, looking at all the different aspects. But it was incredible, and I think that was the moment of the night. And hopefully, I've been posting some of the stuff on social media. Will wants his light heavyweight belt back.
Of
Matt
course.
Muradov is talking about going to heavyweight to take that because neither of them will put on much weight. Will weighed
No.
the same in this fight as he did 6 weeks before when he fought Aras, so 107 kilos.
Yeah.
But Muradov already has the interim middleweight belt. So if he were to claim the heavyweight title and then go down and unify the middleweight, he would become a triple champ,
Yeah.
and it's historic. But Will Fleury is, I mean, he's already and driven. He's already a man with the fire in his belly to create special moments. But that that again was a devastating moment for him. But it might give us a crazy rematch and a build
Mhm.
up to what could be round two.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. We're looking at Octagon 100 in Prague at the end of the year, which is a milestone event. But there's not many other fights that I think would draw the eyes and even the build up, the anticipation, the backstory, the lot is there.
100%. Yeah, well, again, something too from that fight is I just appreciate the level of respect that both gentlemen have had for each other post fight. Whether it was in the cage or in the post fight kind of presser, even on social media afterwards, it's nothing but good goodwill, good respect from Muradov to Flurry, and again, it's that level of respect will I think give us a good fight because those guys are more willing to put things on the line, knowing that they're facing. I mean, again, Will, he's kind of that consummate warrior, like no matter what, he'll face the toughest challenges. He'll lay it all on the line. He will never back down from that. So I feel like, when you've seen the back and forth with him, maybe with some other fighters on social media who are, he maybe accuses of ducking them, but when he gets a guy who's like, I'll fight you, I'll do, I feel like that creates the best Will Fleury that we can get. So
Yeah.
again, like you said, looking at the end of the year for Octagon 100, I think Murata versus Fleury 2 would be the perfect fight to headline that event.
Well, that's one, but also look at the there's so many factors you can look at that fight, because I still think I think it was stopped early. I think,
well,
yeah, I think the referee as well, was because there was punches at the end of the first round that were after the bell, and again the noise was insane. So I don't blame anybody for not hearing that bell. But I think the referee might have been a bit trigger happy because of that moment, and that bled into him reacting. And again, his job is to protect the fight, which he was trying to do. Will definitely fell in a bad way, but he reconnected by the time the referee stepped in. But Will never made that the excuse. He's and again, when I listen to people like that, and especially when you're talking about champions and true martial artists, he just was like, I shouldn't have been in that position. That's on me.
Yeah, I
And
got
the
caught.
referee,
That's what led to it. It wasn't like,
yeah,
oh, I'm being unstopped, because
yeah.
you never know what. I mean, that's the thing, is you can always theorize. Oh, maybe he would have recovered. Maybe Nurmagomedov would have postured up and landed more shots. But it's all a moot point, because what
Yeah.
happened, and the fact that he accepted responsibility for that, like I said, gives not only his performances in the cage, but just his mentality gives you that extra level of respect for him as an athlete and a player.
I also think the beautiful thing, and this is what happens with Octagon, Will's from Ireland,
Yeah.
and you should have heard the crowds cheer him in, not just here, but in Berlin as well. Like, this is a guy who I've known for years, over 10 years. I've watched him bounce around different promotions. I've seen him chase, what he's getting now, which is opportunities, a platform where he can be himself. But this is, again, Will Fleury is maybe one of the best examples of when you let fighters be who they are, totally authentic, when you give them the platform and the stage to achieve these special moments. And there's only a few that say it and do it. I think it's another great example of not just Octagon, but the fans. They will embrace those warriors. And watching him walk out, the pop he got. Muradov has been based in the Czech Republic for a big part of his professional career. Yeah, for a long time.
15 years,
But
something like that.
Fleury's pop was as big as his, and that says a lot about the impact he's had, and also about what Octagon's done, and then by proxy, the way that our fans, I believe, are kind of different to other promotions. It's not all about this is the hometown guy, we'll cheer him, we'll boo the other guy. You show up, you be that guy, you give us those moments, and you can be our champion as well as anyone else's.
Yeah, 100%. Well, talking about those special moments, obviously, like I said, had a lot in this last event, but I kind of want to just go through some of the biggest moments of the year with you, and kind of just talk about, recap Octagon as the first half of 2026, and then maybe hinge that into, what we're looking forward to in the next half. I mean, starting off at the beginning of the year, we had Yotko winning the belt. And he's kind of turned into one of those year-long stories as well. We had that quick submission, against Kareem Engizek. Obviously, that fight had some, fog around it surrounding the hand injury of Engizek. But, that then turned into the war that we got in the second one. Talk to me a little bit about how you've kind of viewed Krzysztof Jotko's career, especially in the renaissance that he's kind of experienced post-UFC, going through that game-changer tournament, and then dealing with the adversity both inside the cage and, frankly, outside the cage with some of the recent events as well. What's your kind of perspective to seeing that all go down?
Yeah, and again, I think it's a sign of the growth of MMA as a whole. Because usually used to be, when you finish your UFC career, that was pretty much it. You would kind of float around if you wanted to. There was not opportunities for you to win the type of prize money he did. Again, a 300,000 euro check in his account for winning that Tip Sport Game Changer, and then the platform, the arenas that he's been fighting in. He's never headlined anything like that before, and I know he had like 17 fights in the UFC, but it's been a bumpy ride. And I'll give you an interesting fact about Yotko. He is the only fighter up until now, only fighter that has had an Octagon clause in his other contracts. So he went to fight in FNC, and
Yeah.
part of the deal was he said, I want to get to Octagon, so he had an Octagon out clause
Wow.
in his.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I did not know
Yeah.
that.
So again, shows us what we're doing. But the game changer was amazing, as it has been every year it's been around. He was just so dominant. It was levels in some respects. When you look at what he did to Serdu, the knockout against Mazouk, Hojak gave him the best fight. And then the finale, which again, he did what he had to do. It was an electric atmosphere he was in to win that in Dusseldorf. And then what happened in Cologne was just nuts. The fight was crazy.
It
I
was. I
mean,
mean,
it
again,
was none of
if
us
we remove
predicted.
if we
Go on.
remove everything else, all the other, extracurriculars with that fight,
Yeah.
those 25 minutes with him were incredible. And I think a lot of people expected Engizek to maybe fold the way that he did in the first one and maybe get subbed or, get to the ground. But he fought through. And again, there was so much the energy in that fight was obviously, maybe spilled over a little bit afterwards, but you could just feel that just
Just a
tension the
little bit.
entire time, man. So, and again,
Yeah.
like somebody in the arena like you, with those German Turkish fans, the flares and the chants and everything around you, like it's I'm sure it's a whole nother level. But even through the screen, you could just feel that just
Oh,
raw
it
energy of
was,
the
it's the first time I've seen him with that in between his teeth.
yeah,
Like not just hate, but that type of determination. I mean, he fought, and the phrase might not be right, but you'll know what I mean, like dirtier than he's fought before, like
yeah,
grabbing the cage and bits like that. But that for me showed how much he wanted it, and
yeah,
he came ready to fight.
yeah,
Everybody thought he was going to wilt mentally before that one. The pressure, you can't gain, that amount of skill in that amount of time after the loss in the first fight.
yeah,
But he made it a dogfight, and whatever happened afterwards is crazy in itself and a separate topic. But what
yeah,
they delivered on that night, which is a shame it got overshadowed, is
100%.
two guys fighting tooth and nail to
Hmm.
be the best. So yeah, it was insane. And even a bit afterwards, I was in the cage and it was crazy. But there are moments in my life where I'm either in certain situations or I'm at certain places, and I looked around, I was like, oh yeah, 16-year-old Bryan would think this is really frigging cool. So this is
Gotta take a moment sometimes to appreciate it.
yeah,
Appreciate
exactly.
the moment. Well, hinging into another fighter who's had an incredible year, is Mago Machaev. I mean, obviously, his last fight, we saw him break the streak of Gianni Palakai, who has been one of the greatest stories in Octagon as well. We saw him, defeat Nico Samsonidze, which is a win that has aged incredibly well. And in my humble opinion, I mean, obviously, the Fight Matrix has it. I think Magomed Machaev, pound for pound, the most talented fighter in Octagon. I think if you were to drop him into pretty much any other organization, he would be top 10, top five, maybe even compete for a title. So again, what are your thoughts on Magomed Machaev, seeing him, execute those exceptional performances, especially after you had that hiccup a couple years ago, fighting up a weight class in, Game Changer, losing that fight to Akwoid and Duke, which was an incredible fight in its own. But
Yeah.
again, I feel like Magomed Machaev's really kind of established himself one of those upper echelon names of Octagon over the last, 8 to 12 months.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. You put him in any promotion, and I think he is right up there. He's got it all. He's got the mindset, the skill set. Physically, he's absolutely dedicated his whole life to this sport under the guidance of his dad, under the guidance of the guys out in Soma and Austria as well. There are some guys you watch which they have talent. They have the talent, they definitely have the skills, but they don't make great decisions in the cage.
Yeah,
He has it all.
he does.
He is so good. He's devastating. He's always hunting for the finish. And that loss to Duque, I think, was a good thing for him because he even said in a few interviews, it changed my whole mindset. I went there just to win the fight, not
Yeah.
finish it.
Mhm.
And that cost him.
Mhm.
But then you look at the performances, particularly, I mean, James Hendon, I
Yeah.
think he's elite, and the way he dominated him.
I think that
Um,
looking back, a lot of people say, oh, maybe he didn't finish him, compared to especially the recent performances. But you look at James Hendon and how tough he is, and again, the broken hip that he suffered in that fight, and the fact that he fought through that, and again, his just level of competition. I think, again, that win, like you said, was really like huge for Machaev in terms of like, okay, I can overcome, I can go the distance, I can, maybe not
yeah.
get the finish, and then still execute. And now the finishes have started to come since then. So sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
and no, not at all. I think it's a great point because
Yeah,
Hendon is. I think people still underrate Hendon because even though he lost to Machaev and lost to Palakai, one of the most talented, hardest working,
I mean, those are the
finest
two
examples
most
of.
recent title,
Yeah, yeah,
title fighter. So
yeah,
what's the
totally.
shame in losing to those guys? Yeah,
No, not at all. And also, I think when you're looking at the UK scene, he is still one to watch. His only other losses are like to Paul Hughes and Vachenik, and again, they were Cage
elite
Warriors
name.
and PFL title holders or contenders. And then Machayev, he's just got, from the Samsonidze one, everybody was blown away by that
Yeah.
because Nico came in looking great. The welcome he got, it all looked set for that to be, and he just ripped that away with the same shot that Nico took Dennis Frimpong down with. I don't know if you watched
The
that, which
parallels
is
are truly insane. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And then to go on and do what he did to Palakai, like he froze him in time.
That
He
was one
froze
of
him
the
in time.
almost reminiscent of like the Edson Barbosa Shane Burgos knockout in the UFC
Yeah.
where he kind of just he
Yeah.
said his eyes were there maybe, but everything else was gone. And
It was like, if you have people inside just controlling the things, they're shutting
yeah,
things down one by one, and slowly he just went down.
yeah.
And
So
I
again,
mean, and I rate Palakai a lot, so for him to be
yeah,
able to do that to him is great. So I think he is, like you said, one of the best fighters in the world, not just Europe. A shame that he missed the weight so that he didn't actually get to retain the title. But I think that'll be a small part of the story. We're already looking at going back to Austria, or going to Austria for the first time. That's announced, which will come in 2027. We saw the reception he got when he brought the belt back to Gym 23. And he's still super young. So I think we got a lot more exciting times with Magomed.
mhm. Absolutely. Well, before we talk about some more fighters, I want to go a little side route. Obviously, we've talked about the presentation of Octagon and just how well they tell the stories and give fighters that unique personality. And I wanted to ask you about your favorite walkouts of the year so far, because there's been a variety of incredible walkouts. I mean, between Kareem Angazek with the music and the fire and the crowd, all the way to the more fun walkouts like Ahmad Halimson with the Barbers, my personal favorite. I wanted to kind of get your kind of take on maybe what were your favorite couple, maybe three walkouts of the year so far that you've witnessed, in the arena, cage side with the music, everything else, the crowd.
Yeah, no, great shout, great shout. So I've got a few for sure. The fun one, which definitely went viral, is Bryan Manning coming out
Yes.
on the saw bike, the tricycle, and the whole thing, rolling into town, and then doing what he did to
Yeah.
Daniel Schwint as well. It was epic, and he has, even though he lost his last fight, there's news coming for Bryan Manning, by the way, a great fight coming up in a couple of months or 3 or 4 months. The other one I really let me think. The other one I really liked, and I want to put one at the end because I have a favorite from this year, and I think a powerful one was certainly Engizek, just feeling that. I think Will Fleury, his walkout in Berlin with his brother playing the music
Oh my
to him,
God. How can I
and
forget that one? Especially with the family history and the
oh
relationship that, maybe strayed apart and then came back together and the kind of moment they got. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, we could honestly spend a whole show just raving about Will Fleury and his Octagon career.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
we really could, but just to see his family
yeah,
come together and also see what it meant to Will,
yeah,
because his brother, they were estranged for a long time. There's a lot of rifts in that family, and MMA has brought them back together. Will doing all this crazy stuff, and so that was epic. But my favorite, and he has fast become one of my favorite fighters, is Nikolai Zangief.
yes.
Making the walkout in Hamburg, stepping in on less than 4 hours' notice. So
Hmm.
this guy, it was Ruben Wolf supposed to fight Deji Kalajai, and Ruben Wolf turned his ankle in the warm-up. I actually saw
Yeah,
the footage. He was just in his gym warming up, and he turned his ankle, couldn't fight. They phoned this guy, and he was in Oberhausen, which is like,
yeah,
I think it's something like 3 hours from Hamburg. But they phoned this guy. He's a training partner of Kazim Ares. They phoned him. He was walking his grandma around a park
yeah.
because
It's a weekly tradition. He
yeah,
was
we
saying
did
he
this
wants.
whole thing. Took his wife was there, and his wife said one of my favorite sentences as well, because the guys phoned him up and said, "Do you want to fight?" He said, "I haven't got any of my gear, none of my stuff." We said, "We'll sort it. Can you get to the venue?" He said, "They said, can you get to the venue in 2 hours?" He went, "I'm 3 hours away." So we pushed everything back. And he asked his wife, and he said, because again, it's all happening on the phone in front
Yeah,
of him, in front of his grandma. And he asked his wife, "What do you think? Do you think I can go?" Basically, not asking for permission, but
yeah,
respecting the fact. And she said, "You're a fighter. Go fight."
yeah.
Wow. Wow. So
Just
he gets
impressive.
in his car, he drives, he arrives at the venue half an hour before he's supposed to walk out, warms up, sticks his gloves on, does that, sticks the mouthpiece in, can't even warm up properly, and comes out to Bonnie Tyler's "I Need a Hero." And if you watch, it's not just about the song. Watch him enjoy every second. This is a guy there was an attempted assassination attempt on him. He's got like a bullet wound through his leg and a jacket with a bullet wound through it there where it just missed his stomach. He was told he could never fight again after he injured his knees and his back. Then he came back into the sport and never pictured he would be able to do this. And you see it in his face, you see it in his eyes. And then the fight they gave us, he lost it. Spoiler alert. But the war he gave us with Deji was miles better than the fight with Ruben Wolf would have been, with all respect. And he almost did it. He almost did it. So that walkout for me,
a couple times, yeah, it was incredible.
it's phenomenal.
And
The
I
story.
think probably the
Go on.
best part about the story about it all is he came back his next fight and beat a top prospect, undefeated guy, finished him in the second round and proved that, hey, a little bit of preparation, a little bit of time. I'm not just some guy coming off the couch. I can actually fight, so.
He's the coolest guy as well. I got to tell you, I've spent a little bit of time with him. I actually made an effort when he was in Berlin. He was cornering Harris, and I went and saw him just to say I'm a fan, just to go up to him and shake his hand because it's one of the most gangster moments. So I'd watch out for him because I think he's great. I think he's in this division where anything can happen, the heavyweights, but also he's in the part of his life where, he's now like a cult figure. He's got so much good press. He got so many followers off the back of this thing that, and it makes me happy because it's again another story about chasing your dream, never giving up, and crazy things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back to kind of some of the events that we've seen this year. We've seen some pretty insane submissions this year, and some pretty insane upsets along with those submissions. The two that come to my mind, first of all, are the Josephine Newson fight against Milady Simplicico. Obviously, Simplicico, I think over here in the United States, she was something like a plus 1,000 underdog. I mean, insane odds. Comes in, weathers the first round and gets that submission. And then obviously the second one, which this is a submission I've actually taken into my own training and I've been hitting in the gym lately, but Jack Grant hitting the Scottish Twister on Roni Paradiser. I mean, Jack Grant, for anybody who knows, he's been a top-level fighter across Europe for a long time now. I mean, he went to war, some of the best prospects in the PFL and, all over, really. And he comes in against one of the biggest stars in OKTAGON and hits one of the most unique submissions we've ever seen as a massive underdog. What were your obviously just listed to? Were there any submissions that maybe popped off to your mind during this year? And then just talk to me about witnessing those kind of submissions live as well.
For me, again, when you're learning the game and you're watching it, and it's one of the things I do. I used to do a lot of jiu-jitsu, but I haven't done it for a while. But I watch a lot. I watch a lot of the grappling. I was watching a north choke the other day, just thinking, wow, that's a really weird setup and all these crazy submissions. But obviously the Scottish Twister, Stevie Ray brought it to light, made it so effective, caught it. Then you've got other fighters pulling it off in various ways. And for me, it was the moment he scooted from the cage. Because he had the back, he had a good grip to try and work the rear naked choke. But I knew as soon as he moved himself from the cage, he's not going for this. He's going for something else. And then when he put the grapevine in, I hesitated. I said he could be going for, and I kind of paused. And then when Ronnie turned into him, because again, that's the other side. Ronnie didn't know what that move was. And to be honest, it was quite funny because no one around the cage knew. I know a lot of the referees and the judges do jiu-jitsu and they compete at quite a high level, but they'd written down Twister and I had to stop them. I was like, this is a Scottish Twister. We have to get this right. We can't be the promotion that lets that happen and call it. So I mean, and I was really pleased for Jack because I've known him for a long time as well, from the Bama years all the way up and through.
So he was, that's crazy. That's a throwback right there, man.
Yeah, man. Well, that was where I started with Bama. So all these guys like Jack and even Mark Diakese, that's where I got to know these guys and see how good they were from that young age. But the other one I really liked was in Hanover, Justin Detzel, which is a guy you should definitely keep your eye on.
Yes.
Again, an incredible story behind him. Lost his dad when he was really young, so his mum was bringing up, I think, 3 kids in a small apartment. Wow. And somehow, some way, he found himself to martial arts, and he used to travel all the way from where he lived to Hanover to get training. So before he was 18. And it's an incredible journey for this one kid to take up and down to the point where when he turned 18, he bought a flat, or his parents helped, or his mum helped him with a flat up there so he could stay and train. But he pulled off a Suliev stretch in a comeback fight. Like he was getting the brakes beaten off him by this other debutant that nobody was really looking at. And out of nowhere, he took the back. And when he grabbed that ankle and when he wrenched on it, again, it was just showed the level. And he's only 21 or 22, I think, Detzel. And so much hype behind him. And it looked like it was going to be one of these fights that make their debut and the bright lights are too much. but to whip a Suliev stretch out of the out of your back pocket to get the victory was really something special. So I think that's up there. But the Scottish Twister, just the fact I've seen and called one now,
Yeah.
I can tick that box that I've witnessed it live. I've screamed about it. I think it's the second highest viewed video on my Instagram as well, with the reaction videos.
I'd say two or 300 of those views from me. Again, I've watched that video back. So the reaction, the submission.
I'll just send you the raw footage. I won't have to waste your time, mate. Don't you worry.
Please do, please do. But before we move on to kind of what's coming next in this year for Octagon, there's one more fighter I kind of want to talk about, and I mean two fighters really, but it's the Severino brothers. Obviously, Octagon has provided a second chance for so many fighters, and Igor Severino is one of those guys. With the bite situation, with the kind of ostracization from not only the UFC but MMA in general, and then for Octagon to kind of give him this opportunity to kind of reinvent himself and turn himself into a championship caliber fighter, and then seeing his brother debut as well, Mateus Severino, and as a massive underdog beat a hometown favorite in Sean Da Silva, who's one of my personal favorite fighters, and I think he'll have a bright future moving on. But yeah, talk to me about the Severinos, and obviously coming from Brazil, a completely different region, and then adopting themselves into this European promotion and really becoming stars in this league. Talk to me just about how what it's like working with them, talking with them, and their kind of journey.
It's again, I've had a few moments in like the career I've had as a commentator where you see a fighter and you'll never forget what they are or how good they are. I've had it with Magomed Zabit Sharipov, Peter Yan, people like that. But Severino, Igor, is someone when he first came, that Jonas fight was good. He beat like a really legit former Octagon champion to that. But then to see how he's grown, that Kakarov fight this year in Hamburg,
I mean, it was
not like it was a demolition, but it's one of those moments where because again, I watch the events back, and particularly when I've loved the fights and I want to see it just sitting back and watching it. There was something about the noise his strikes were making. And it wasn't just me that was feeling. I remember looking around after one combination, I think it was towards the end of the first round, and Kakarov, God knows how he survived and stayed on his feet for so long. But I looked around, and Pavel and Andre and the other commentators, the look in their eye was all the same. It's hard to describe. I know it. You could see it on the TV, but it's hard to describe just when you witness somebody so dialed in, absolutely fearless with what they're doing, fighting somebody at their own game and watching that person suddenly realize they're not ever going to win this game. It was a coming out party. Same with the Zhumagulov fight. And I know it ended with a little bit of controversy, but I think there's a reason, we've got Holzer versus Severino next. Which what a fight that is. But I think Igor, the journey he's made, he has been through so much in this sport. And this is a sport where he was on the mats watching his brother Mateus when he was a kid. So when he was doing jiu-jitsu, he wasn't allowed in the MMA class. So he'd sit and watch until the point where they finally said, join the mats. He had his first pro fight. It's not even on his Tapology, age 15. Age 15, beat the fuck out of some old guy. And then undefeated up until the disqualification for the biting. But that was such a dark era. And one thing that I think is a blessing is that the brothers are together. Because I think whether Mateus would say this or not, I think the gym certainly helped. But I think Mateus, when you see their relationship, saved that kid. Because they were getting death threats. The mom, the sister, the dad were receiving the most hideous messages. He was ready to end his life because there was nothing there. And this is at 21. What mistakes were you making at 21? Because I know if you jump back to me, I was, again, under that spotlight, and especially in this era of social media, it's crazy. So to see him come back to reclaim the bite by coming out as Hannibal now, embrace it, and then to watch him go on and do what he's doing, it's truly special. But the fact his brother is there, and I thought his brother's fight, Mateus against Sean Da Silva, showed a real maturity in his performance. Because if you look at the LFA fights he's had, they're kind of wild.
Oh my God!
Doing cartwheel kicks and crazy shit.
Must-see TV, but not for the sake of this guy's gonna be a winner. It's like this guy's gonna be swinging like a maniac, and somebody's getting finished. Maybe him, maybe his opponent. I don't know who. But now again, going into that Sean Da Silva fight, you're correct. He was so measured. He managed his cardio.
He was so good. Technical.
everything. Yeah,
Everything was there. And again, when you travel for fights, it definitely has an effect. And if you're not there and you don't acclimatize, and they're coming all the way from Brazil on,
yeah.
two connections to get to this random city in Europe. And I think he's really good. I think he's really good, and I think they're really good together. There's that whole thing that brothers in sport are able to push each other further than anything else. You look at the Diaz's, you look at all these other examples of
I
where the
mean,
Pettis
my personal
brothers.
example, my MMA coach, Kevin, that's TV dad, he was in the UFC for a while. His younger
There you
brother,
go.
yeah,
Yeah.
9-0, undefeated flyweight. I mean, the way they are able to push each other and help each other during their career, and how Kevin's experiences has now shaped Christian's, path to hopefully the same goal. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
It's yeah, seeing siblings fight alongside each other and share their career is always so fascinating to see how they feed off of each other and how the dynamic can really create something special with both their careers. So yeah,
And
definitely.
I
So
think what might happen, and I don't, it's not being confirmed yet, but obviously we've got Hanover coming, which is already looking like an insane card. Even just with that main fight, Holzer versus Severino, it's almost sold out basically on that fight alone,
yeah,
which it should be. It's that
yeah.
good, that fight. But I think the hope is that we can get Jan Holzer, who made
Mhm.
his amateur debut, and I think it may be another amateur fight on that
I
card.
saw he
And if
has I saw he has one booked right now. I think for a
yeah,
smaller show as an
a
amateur
small
fight.
show. So he's got this, and then I think he's got another one. Hopefully, if we can make it happen, if it works, and then
Yeah,
if we can get Mateus on that, and you might be able to tell this better than me. I don't know if there's ever been two sets of brothers fighting on one card before.
that's a great question. I really don't know if there has been either. I
I don't. I'll have to do some proper research. But when they
yeah,
were talking about the card, I asked the
two
question. I
sets of
said,
brothers. Yeah.
is it possible to get Jan?" And I said, "What about Mateus? Because if that's the case, maybe that's also kind of a crazy little stat that we can
Well,
achieve."
again,
But
I love the unique kind of angles Octagon takes, like the Lucy and Will, a couple fighting for a belt the same night, coming things that have never been done before. It's like that kind of angle beyond the fight, but yet bringing it back to the event itself. Because I
yeah.
think a lot of promotions get lost in that, like either they lean too hard into the outside of the cage stories, or maybe they lean too far away from those and just focus on the cage. But finding that balance of humanizing these people, yet bringing the focus back to the fight, back to the event, back to their actual careers is the best way to promote. And I think Octagon does such a great job of doing that. So
Yeah,
again,
it's a
those
cool
little kind of
dynamic as well,
it
right?
is.
It's like
Yeah,
it gives you another angle. I think you
yeah.
said it there. And I think I'll be interested. I haven't done any proper research on that, but it was earlier this week we were talking about it. I was like, that could be a first. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens.
Well, looking forward a little bit coming up. Obviously, we're on a little break until September 12th, as I mentioned earlier, but we got huge event, new main event recently was just announced for Octagon 93, if I'm not mistaken. At least listed on Tapology, and we got the poster. But Magard versus Rusal, massive fight announced. We also have the return of Vagabund, Andre Kalasnik, taking on Kennedy Ryumba. Talk to me about what you think about this card. Obviously, we got a lot of good matchups. Another one that I really have circled is Neve Kinahan taking on actually somebody I'm very familiar with over here in North America, Alana Cook, coming over to Octagon, which is, I think, a very, very exciting signing by the promotion, especially just, getting more women's bantamweights in there. But talk to me about your thoughts about this card going back to Brno. I think it's going to be a good re-entry back into the Octagon schedule.
Yeah, Brunel's always been kind of special for us. It was basically our fight island.
Yeah.
So many of our fights have happened there. We stayed in the Bobby Centrum Hotel, which is it's basically a hotel out in the middle of nowhere, which had its own little theater, which we turned into the venue, and
Yeah.
we could isolate in the things. So we've had so many fights there, and there's so many fighters from there. But the big one for me is that Rochelle and Magard, because it's going to be so much fun on social media. If you're not following them already, just
Yeah.
jump in. The line will be crossed, and
Yeah.
it's already teetering on the edge, and we're only like 4 days out of the announcement, 5 days out of the announcement. But it's also an interesting fight because Magard's moving up a weight class, former bantamweight champion, two-time bantamweight champion, had big wins, been headlining, 3 times the amount of fights as Rochelle. But Rochelle in his last 5 fights has been devastating,
And
like
it seems like
knocking people.
every time he comes in there, he proves people wrong. Everybody has some sort of criticism, like, oh, he can't grapple. Oh, his cardio might not be there. Oh, maybe, his fight IQ. And every time he just obliterates those criticisms. I mean, again,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I fully picked Samuel Bark to beat him. I said he's a more experienced striker. He has higher level competition. He, you know, is the better fighter on paper looking at it all. And I mean, Roddick came out and just again, annihilated him in the first round like nothing,
Look,
you know. So,
I mean, look at that knockout. Look at the Kutera knockout, the Hermansky
holy
knockout.
fry, I mean,
Oh,
he put him out five
the
times in one fight, and he
four,
cheated.
5 knockdowns in one fight, and God bless Corey Fry, the
Yeah,
toughness of him to keep
yeah.
getting back up. But it's crazy because he's got this kind of new TMZ life because he's got this celebrity girlfriend, and usually when that happens, everything goes down. You
You
know,
would
it
think so.
all you think, but it's exploded,
Yeah.
and it's the biggest test. It's one of the most fun fights. They're always crazy at the weigh-ins. They will headline this, and it's in the backyard of Radek. So, but Magad does not care. He will fight anyone, and that says everything about him. And he's kind of in no man's land just because of the title thing with Severino and Holzer going on because he wanted the Holzer fight. So he'll have his eyes on that. But this gives him a main event. This gives him a big name in the Czech Republic, and it will be the test for Radek. Is he capable of getting into that top 5? If he is, that's crazy to see
Yeah.
where he's come from. But if Magad can do a job on him, then that puts him straight away into a strong position for asking for featherweights or even bantamweights
Yeah.
title chances.
Yeah, and I know the walkout's going to be absolutely crazy for that one too. Obviously, Rookie's known for putting on some different spins on his entry to the cage, so I'm looking forward to that. But as I mentioned, down the card, we have one of the best women's bantamweight fights you can book right now, in my opinion. I mean, we have Neve Kinahan, Muay Thai world champion, obviously from your neck of the woods. I'm sure you're very familiar with her career and all of her accomplishments, you know, in the ring, in the cage. Take on Alana Cook, who the Alanimal I'm very familiar with. She's fought for promotions over here in the U.S., such as Cage Fury FC. Had some success up in her native Canada as well, and now she's making the trip across the pond to Europe to take
Yeah,
on the incredible striker. And Alana Cook, she's a mixed martial artist. She's going to come forward. She's going to mix it up. She's a good grappler, good striker. She's tough as nails. So again, I think this is a proper step up facing somebody who had a little more worldly experience for Kinahan because she's shown dominance in her first 2 fights, but again, she's still learning. The cage is much different than the Muay Thai ring, obviously.
yeah. And the last 2 opponents have both been at their core. They are MMA fighters, but at their
Yeah,
core strikers. You had
that's true.
Misha, who was a Muay Thai fighter, and then of course Shavinska, who's a multiple-time K1 champion. So I think Alina is, going to be the biggest test because she brings all the skills and not
Mhm.
just able to do them individually, but puts them together really well. She's very strong when
I
she
was gonna
gets
say
it
very
down,
physically strong. She's
very
a
physically
big
imposing.
girl in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. She's and again, she's got that warrior spirit in her from her heritage and everything that comes with that. She's coming here to live her dream. You
Yeah.
cannot take away what that means. She's put on her Instagram like her wish list for 2026, and fighting abroad for a major promotion was one, and this is that.
There you go.
But Kinahan for me is one to watch just because I know how dominant she was in Muay Thai.
Mhm.
The most decorated female fighter in the West. Um, she unified the lightweight. She was a WBC champion in Muay Thai. I think 3 years, 5 defenses. Fought featherweight, fought lightweight, and
It goes
for
on and on.
me,
Yeah.
and being in war, she won one of her last fights. She bust her shoulder. She popped her shoulder. She basically beat the girl with one arm,
Yeah.
just because she refused to quit. But she's training with people like Aaron Aby's in there at Aspire. She's still training at Frank's gym, but she's surrounded by up and comers. There's Liam McCracken, who I think you'll hopefully see on something like
Yeah.
Contender Series soon. Marlon Jones, who's just been in the tough house for that
Yeah.
season. There's so many good names, and she is a worker. She
Yeah.
doesn't turn up to do a post after a thing. She's not trying to be what she isn't. She is a pure fighter. And to watch what she did to Chavinska and the
Yeah.
way she did it, she showed a lot more development in their game. Her takedowns were good. She used the weapons and the assets she had, like her frames were great. Her
Mhm.
work off the cage was so good. Her balance and her instinct is phenomenal. So it's a superb fight. And I think it won't get the credit until it's happened. I think
100%.
when we've watched it and we see how good a matchup this is, I think that's when people will look back at both these ladies, and whoever gets their hand raised, I think firmly establishes themselves as a problem in that division.
Yeah. Well, again, similar to heavyweight, women's bantamweight, it's a lot easier to establish yourself as a top name, top contender a lot earlier in your career just due to, kind of the less numbers overall of the people in that weight class. Well, the next obviously big event that we have for I want to talk about before we kind of get wrap up here is House of the Gods, Octagon 94, going back to the Eintracht, 60,000, people going, and really some of the biggest name matchups Octagon has seen. Some of them maybe not be the rankings matchup we see with fights like Magard versus Rusal, but at the end of the day, the fans are going to come out for Koga and Youngworth and Eckerlin and Cosma and Vosgroni and Vemola. Talk to me just about how special that first event was at the Eintracht and how excited you are to go back to that. I mean, that cathedral of sport in Germany.
Yeah, nicely put. It was like almost like a pilgrimage for people just to watch a city suddenly become absorbed, because it was 58,000 fans is what we got in there last time, and I think it will be just above that this time, because they want to break the record, which is great. But every moment about it was great. You could feel the buzz with the fighters. I mean, the fans were everywhere. You couldn't go to even like a what you would call a 7-Eleven and just grab a bottle of water without somebody being in there that was going to be watching Octagon or asking you a question about it. And then the actual day, when you witness the size of it, and then you hear the roars for people like Koga coming out and Ekelin, it's different. It is totally different. And it's so, I mean, we see it in boxing especially in the UK, with big fights like Tyson Fury and Joshua and Eubank Ben Jr. But in MMA, it's a rarity. It is, there's only KSW that have done some of those events. They never did 2 in a year. But for me, it was another moment where you have to ground yourself, remember you're there, pinch yourself, and kind of absorb what you can while you're also just totally involved in the fights. And I think you summed it up right. So there are some fights on there which I do think we are looking at the future. Hugo Vac versus Ilbai, Fedor Duric versus Matt Diakaze. You've got Michael Obadozi on this card now as well, which is nuts. Because
he's taking on a 5-0, much more experienced and really
Oscar
solid
Staszczyk, yes. Yeah, really good guy. He's one of Yana and Jacek's. In fact, she manages him. She looks after him, one of her best friends. But Obadozi's story's crazy. He debuted as the first ever amateur in our cage. That was at Octagon in Cologne. Won that fight in 19 seconds as the underdog.
One of the nastiest finishes in amateur or pro I've seen. Yeah. Incredible.
And then turn pro. Now his next fight will be in the football stadium. Again, stories like that are crazy. So for me, it's a good mix on the card. I think the Vemola versus Vosgroni is so intriguing because of who they are. Cosma versus Ekelin, which has now been agreed, gives you the former most decorated champion, technically the king of the Czech Republic, versus what is the king of Germany and Christian Ekelin. And then Koga Youngworth is just wild. Koga coming up 2 weight classes to fight one of the craziest stories and fighters in MMA. That fight where Youngworth fought Niklas Stolzer, and basically broke him. And Stolzer is he has one of the most fortified minds I've seen in MMA. The way he prepares, the spiritual side of it.
He hunts poachers in his free time, for Christ's sake. I mean, that's a tough man right there. Like, that's one of my favorite stories from any Octagon fight.
So good.
For Stolze. But anyways, yeah, I completely agree right there. Like, that was really a coming out performance for Youngworth. And again, not to be missed on this card as well is Cordero versus Pukac. 2 guys who have been around for a while in Octagon as well, but Cordero just a highlight machine, and Pukac, who has defied the odds over and over again in his career and proved that he is far better than his record indicates. So the one question I kind of wanted to ask you about this is I've had a lot of people kind of wonder and ask me, why is Vemola versus Vosgroni listed under Celebrity Series? Do you know the details behind that?
So yeah, basically, and again, when you're looking at Vosgroni in particular, like there is definitely more of an edge of the celebrity going there, and I think part of this is as well, not just the looking at the fighters as people, but the content that comes with it. And the Celebrity Series is much more an inside view of following. It's not like our showdowns. It's not like our undergrounds. And for the German market, we've had the Idis versus Uwe fight, which was classed as a celebrity fight, but it didn't have the series with it. Whereas this one is going to have the content that follows it. And again, when you're thinking about these 2 guys, they are some of the most unique humans in the sport. Like, I would watch Vosgroni make a sandwich, go to the shops, just because he'd do it in such a weird, unique way.
I will be completely honest. He's the only fighter who I have repeatedly had people come to me as an Octagon fan and be like, who is this guy? You know, I'm talking whether it's people at my gym or guys who just see him on social media, my friends, you know, they're like, is this caveman Patty Pimblett? Like, what's
Yeah,
going on here? You know, all these
there's a
questions.
lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, in terms of reach, there's no doubt that Voskroni has broken outside of the MMA space the most, or even the Octagon fan base the most. So I definitely understand that. But that's good to know kind of your details on that. Just
No, it's
adding.
fine. And again, because I'll flip it the other way as well. Carlos Ramola is so unique as well, and he is a fighter's fighter. I've
Yeah.
never heard, and I've been in meetings where he's been offered fights and he just takes them. Like
Yeah.
he does not. He's the fights. But I went to his house after the Stvanitsa this weekend. He invited me on Sunday for a barbecue and to feed his lions. So I went to his house. He's got Vermola. He's got Vermola land.
Yeah.
And in there, you walk in and basically walk into his back garden, and then there's this massive cage, and there's just two. I'll send you the video afterwards. There's two
Wow.
lions in there, and basically, he's got lions, he's got some other animals, he's got a shark, and basically, he's obsessed with saving these things. So these two lions were going to be put down, so he took them. And I think that one of the stories, one of the famous stories, was he took one and then the whoever the animal rights people were came to his house and he built this whole thing, and they said it's
Yeah.
not legal to just have one lion.
Then
So
you
he
get
looked at the
friend
small
or
print,
partner.
and he got two. So he got the other one as well, brought it over, and then they couldn't do anything. But you should look at the way he looks after these. And again, when you talk about celebrity series, what the
Yeah.
series is about is opening people's eyes to the other world that these people can live in. And in MMA, as a crossover into that German market with this brand celebrity series, there's no two fighters that probably have more unique lives outside of the cage than these two. So it will give people the insight. They'll follow the journey. They'll learn a bit more about them as humans. They'll see the wildness that comes in and around their lives. And then on top of that, we get to see them fight. So
Yeah.
it should be fun.
Yeah. 100%. Well, obviously, a lot to look forward to this in the second half of this year. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. It was a blast talking about all these different things. Everybody, make sure to go follow Bryan Lacey at Bryan Lacey MMA on Instagram, I believe, and obviously check out Octagon. Check out his commentary. It's best promotion in the world, in my humble opinion. Any
I
last words, anything
appreciate
you
you.
want to say before we wrap it up here?
So what was the last bit? What did you say?
Any last words or anything you want to say before we wrap it up here?
Thank you, my friend. And I appreciate it takes
The
time to
blast.
be like a fan on when it's different time zones and all this stuff. But I genuinely mean it. I watch your interviews. It helps me a lot with my research, my prep, and I think you do a great job. I think the fact that you fight
Hmm.
gives you the level of understanding, and even at the tiniest nuanced detail of what these men and women go through, and it makes the interviews extremely easy to watch, and you can see the fighters like it as well. So props to you, my man. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't live in Arizona anymore. It's too fucking hot, mate.
Well, hey,
Honestly, there's
I'd
other
love to make it out
places
to
in
Europe and
America.
stay there, man. That's the goal one of these days.
If you
But
if you ever make it over, listen, I'd love to take you for some food or for a beer or something like that. So
that'd be amazing.
yeah, make it part of your wish list, and let's make that dream come true, Dylan. All right.
100%, my man. Well, thanks so much, Brian, and everybody, stay tuned. Octagon 93 back on September 12th. Until then, just go back and watch the old events. It's worth it. But anyways, have a good
Ciao,
one, and thanks again, Brian.
ciao, buddy.